It takes a great deal of courage to stand up to your enemies, but a great deal more to stand up to your friends.
If I murdered someone, she's the person I'd call to help me drag the corpse across the living room floor. She's my person.
I stepped up. She's my friend, and she needed help. If I had to, I'd pee on any one of you. Welcome to the Best Friends Playbook podcast.
With your hosts, Crystal and
Alicia. We've known each other for over 27 years, and we're here to share our wisdom on friendships in film, TV, and literature.
So grab some coffee, our favorite, and get cozy.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Best Friends Playbook podcast with Alicia
and Crystal.
This week we are talking about one of our absolute favorite shows, Gilmore Girls.
Yes, I love it. It's like my favorite, one of my all-time favorite shows.
I just love all the pop culture references and the witty banter, and I don't know. I think everyone wants like a mom relationship,
definitely,
like mom-daughter relationship, like they have.
Yeah. It was like the most inspiring show for me as a kid. I was just watching it recently. I was thinking what a great role model Rory was for me. Like I wanted to fucking be Rory, and I wanted to go to Harvard too and just be as smart as her. And I learned so much from her.
Yeah, I feel like every time I'm lacking motivation, I'm like, I just need to watch Gilmore Girls and see how hard Rory works.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then get my butt to work.
Totally.
Their relationship is really interesting because I feel like they're more friends than they are mother-daughter.
Yeah.
Which
absolutely.
then creates a struggle for them to actually, when they have mother-daughter moments, like Lorelai lacks complete power and gets very emotional. And I also feel like then Rory sometimes takes on the parent role, and then she also just doesn't know like how to be a child.
That's a good point. Yeah, Rory definitely takes on that parental role a lot of the time, you know, like her mom will go out on a date or something and Rory's just like staying at home studying.
Or like we're going to talk about what we believe are their three major fights are that define the relationship. But this was a very like minor one. It's in season 1 where they find out the house has termites, and Lorelai is so proud that she doesn't want to ask her grandparents or her parents for money, and she doesn't want to ask them for help to get a loan. And she tells Rory like, we're not going to them. But then of course when they're at dinner on a Friday night, Rory immediately tells her grandma that they have termites and they can't afford it.
Was that in season 1? I don't remember watching that.
Actually, it might be season 2.
It might be because I'm like only halfway through season 2 right now, and I'm pretty sure I haven't watched that one yet.
Yeah, so I can't remember. We've just seen it all. It kind of blends together. But it was just funny that I get that Lorelai like doesn't want to deal with her parents because of the way they deal with money and how she feels about that world. But your house is falling apart, and your daughter has to be like the one to get over her pride and ego to ask like your parents for money.
Lorelai just like, she has so many issues with her parents that I don't know. I think that they need like a lot of therapy, which they kind of do in the most
like
recent season. Remember?
Yeah, the return of it.
Yeah, when the mom and Lorelai go to therapy, but they should have been doing therapy years before that.
Oh yeah, it was funny because like Lorelai did not want to be there, but it's like your dad's dead, you only have your mom left. Like maybe it's time to just sit there and figure it out. But I think that really had truth to how Lorelai was still so angry at her parents that she'd rather play that game than to like own up to her faults in the relationship also.
Yeah, now that I think about it, besides the getting pregnant at 16 part, was there anything like nothing else major happened before that, right? Like that was the thing, that the rift that like tore them apart.
It was mostly that she
just didn't fit in with their stuff.
Yeah, like she wanted to go to like a fancy Ivy League school, but she wanted to have like this rock and roll life, and she didn't like that her parents, you know, were having her do like those coming out parties, and she had to marry
Cotillion,
the cotillions, and had to marry this perfect guy and had to get like the 9-to-5 job, even though that's what she ends up getting.
Yeah.
Kind of. I think she just wanted to like be seen and be heard, and her parents wanted her to be a certain way. And because she wasn't being seen or heard, she just went to like the full extreme of leaving.
Yeah, I know. I mean, when you watch it, I can't even imagine if I was Lorelai in that situation. I would fucking hate it. Like, I don't think I would even have gone to the lengths of going to an Ivy League school or any of that stuff. Like, I don't know. They make it seem so much more terrible in the show.
Yeah, like her house seemed really like stuffy, and it didn't really seem like she had that many friends growing up. It was kind of like just her and Christopher.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, yeah, she probably didn't fit in that world, but her parents were like, this is kind of the life you have to live. And because there wasn't really any piece of it for her, she did everything to claw her way out.
That, by the way, the way they portray like a rich Connecticut family is the kind of shit that I hate. Like everybody, I'm not going to lie, I'm from California and I enjoy California. And when people talk about the East Coast and people that live in like Jersey or Connecticut or Massachusetts, all I can think about is like really fucking rich douchebags that like have to, you know, go to their rowing class or go do do equestrian crap and then like go to their Ivy League school. And I don't, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't want to be there either. So
yeah, I mean, there were certain
my jam.
aspects to her life that seemed beneficial. She was really smart. And then because her parents also had went to Yale and they had money, like she was going to get a full ride no matter what. And then after that, she could have bought her freedom. But when you're a teenager, like if you hate it, like you hate that life and nothing else matters.
But you know what's really funny is, so I hated the way that they portray like Lorelai's life, and I would never ever want to be in that situation. But Rory was such a great role model, and how smart she was, the book she read. I'm not kidding. I like took notes and I was like, I'm gonna read that book too when I was like in high school watching this shit. She was so inspiring, and she like made me want to be like that more than seeing Lorelai in that situation. The working hard, the struggle was, I think, more exciting to me than just having it handed to you.
Yeah, definitely. Because I definitely really admire Lorelai, and she became a manager at the inn, starting as just like a maid there. So she definitely moved her way up, and then she got her AA in business. And I know that was hard work for her while raising a daughter and making sure they had a good relationship, and that, Rory came out pretty good, which I think she did. But at the same time, because of like all of Lorelai's issues, they're definitely spawned on to Rory.
Yeah.
But there was definitely something about like Rory that was much more inspiring. Like she was definitely gifted with brains, but she had the opportunity to thrive in any way she wanted to, which I thought was really great. And that was inspiring.
Yeah. She was, I don't know, she was just an inspiring person. I will definitely be watching this show for years to come and making my kids watch the show because Rory's fucking awesome.
It's definitely,
when she's not around boys, I mean.
I know, but I feel like that's where she gets those issues from Lorelai, because Lorelai did not know how to be like in a relationship. So Rory never had an example of what like a loving relationship should be until she was with Luke. But by then it was kind of too late. Like I feel like Lorelai's bad habits were already put in her about men.
And not only that, but when Lorelai is with Luke, they have all these issues because he has the daughter that he didn't know about, and they don't communicate about that and all that shit.
That April, like I know there's so many fans of April, but it really bothers me that Amy Sherman Palladino made that storyline like, oh, I have to create difficultness in their relationship, so I'm going to give him an unknown daughter, and because he's so desperate for this, even though all he's ever wanted is Lorelai, I'm not going to destroy it. Like, yeah, I hated that so much.
So I just watched the very first season where Lorelai is with Max, and want to talk about a like fucked up relationship, right? It's her daughter's teacher. She like puts Rory in the middle of it in a lot of situations and fucks with her schooling, right? And then when they get engaged, they're having this like great old engagement, whatever, and they're planning shit. And then she decides that she just can't handle it, doesn't love him, and doesn't even like call or anything. She just fucking splits with her daughter on like a road trip. And I'm like, that's really fucked up to be exposing your daughter to that kind of stuff. Like that is not how you break up a relationship. That is not how you deal with it. Like she's just running away like she did when she had Rory,
OG ghosting.
Yeah.
No, that relationship is such a perfect example of how much Lorelai like desperately wants to keep the friendship between her and Rory rather than mother-daughter. And because she's so worried about upsetting her friend who's actually her daughter, she has all this anxiety built around like, should I date Max? Should I not? How am I going to tell Rory about it? Then she waits too late to tell Rory, and then Rory finds out later. And had she not had all this pressure built around needing her and her daughter to have this perfect friendship, she would have treated it like, we're mother and daughter. I'm an adult. I want to date your teacher. Here's what's going on. Or been like, no, I can't date you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I just feel like because she hated the relationship between her parents, she puts all this pressure on the relationship between her and Rory.
Yeah, I think it's like a classic Lorelai has daddy issues, right? Which gets translated.
Oh my God, yeah. Like in the comeback season. She can't get married because she hasn't dealt with her dad dying, which I thought was great, but we didn't have time to explore that more.
No, we didn't. I wish they would have done more with that last season. But she has these like major daddy issues that you don't really like see ever until that final season, but they're there and it translates in her relationships. And then of course, Rory has the exact same kind of daddy issues because her dad was never around. And even when he was pretty flaky, couldn't hold down a job, whatever. So it's a great story, just Gilmore Girls in general, of seeing, a mother have this kind of life and these kind of issues, and then it translating to the daughter, and it's a cycle, it just repeats, Yeah,
I wish we could have gotten more insight into what's Lorelai's mom's name again? My brain's not working. Emily. I wish.
And dad is Richard. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we could have had more insight to Emily's parents, because we definitely learned about Richard's mom.
Yeah.
Which I was actually
I
watching.
thought she was really funny.
She was hilarious. But there was like one point in season 1 where I think Richard mentions that she's like dead, and then they later on decide to revive her. But shows do that when they're figuring out their feet, just like how Kirk played 3 different characters before he became Kirk. So I will forgive Amy for that. But I wish we got more insight to what Emily's mother was like, because it would really give us an example then of why she was so like specific with Lorelai and wanted her to be this certain way. But she was also very different with Rory. And I get that Rory was like her granddaughter, but she was actually, I think she learned from her mistakes with Lorelai. So she was more accepting of Rory. She wanted Rory to be herself and do what she wanted to do. But yeah, like you said, basically, as we saw the generational effects, it would have been nice to see why Emily was the way she was.
Yeah, I know. I don't fully agree with what you just said, because I do feel like in the later seasons when Rory is living with the grandparents, when she dropped out of Yale or whatever, the grandma like gets her into DAR and all this shit. And I was like, I kind of feel like she wants to make her what she wanted Lorelai to be, you know? But I mean, at the same time, it's totally different because that's your granddaughter and Rory's her own person. But I kind of feel like she wanted to do that.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I guess it was more that she allowed Rory to not return to Yale. Like she let Rory do what she wanted for like half a second versus like if Lorelai had pulled that, she would have been infuriated and they would have been in a huge fight. But yeah, she eventually was like, oh my God, Rory's doing nothing. Like we need to fix this now. Like this is unacceptable to be a Gilmore. And then she started turning her into her.
When Rory does start living with them, and there's like this huge rift between Lorelai and the grandma or her mom because of her allowing Rory to leave school and giving her a place to live and all that stuff. Oh my God, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, let's go ahead and get into this. We'll just go a little out of order with the fights. So I think the biggest fight of the entire show is the one that we're talking about right now, which is where Rory has basically felt that she is incompetent to be a journalist because she was working for Mitchum, which was her boyfriend Logan's father. And he's supposed to be like one of the most renowned journalist people, even though he's just a businessman who owns all these newspapers. He was probably a journalist for like half a second and then realized once he could make money, he gave that up. So in my opinion, he's not that talented, but his word is God. She works for him as an assistant at one of his newspapers. And because she acts more of an assistant rather than a journalist, even though she was just trying to be like a good employee and follow the rules, he's like, you're not cut out for this. So Rory takes it for word and then she can't sleep or concentrate.
It like ruins her life.
Yeah, she like walks out of her exams and tells her mom like, I'm not going back to Yale. And so of course like Lorelai freaks out because one, she's like, you are supposed to have the life I didn't have. And it's not going to be ruined by a boy and his family, especially in the rich world that I left. So she's always been terrified of Rory being a part of this world and having those things happen to her. And so she goes to her parents, Richard and Emily, and says, we need to have a plan. And they say they're totally going to back her up. But then the second Rory comes over crying that her mom doesn't agree with her, they go behind Lorelai's back, which is so weird. And they do what Rory wants.
And by the way, they do that like more than once. They did it in, I think it was like season 1.
Oh yeah, when Rory sleeps over because she's in a fight with her mom.
Yeah, like I think Emily loves being her like Rory's like safe haven. Like, oh, you don't want to, your mom and you are having a fight. Well, you can come hang out with me kind of thing. Like, I think she just wants to have the best possible relationship and have the most influence on Rory that she can possibly have. So she'll always be her like safe haven. Like, of course you can come here.
Yeah, because she never got to have that with Lorelai. So she's like, if I can't have it with my actual daughter, I'm going to do whatever it takes to have it with my granddaughter. And Rory, because she's so separated from that situation, she loves her grandparents, which why wouldn't she? And she wants to be able to have a relationship with them.
Here's the great thing about that whole fight, or whatever you want to call it. When Rory has her like epiphany, like, oh my God, her breakdown, whatever you want to call it, about college, I think it was a really fucking great example of what every kid goes through when they go to college. Like, I know I had that, not even just in college, just like having a job and something that you think you want to do, and then having it all fall apart or realizing that maybe you're not cut out for it or it wasn't what you expected. I think they did a really great job of that. And I'm glad that she walked away for a hot second and figured her shit out. It probably shouldn't have happened in that way, but I think it was good that she did it.
Yeah, I definitely think it was important too. I'm sort of going through that with myself, figuring out my career and if what I originally wanted to do is what I should be doing. So it's definitely can happen to anyone at any point in their life. I unfortunately wasn't able to go to college, but I do think that when you're in college and you have all this pressure around you and you have to complete all these classes and you're so hyper focused on this one thing, that's too much pressure.
Yeah. I've had a couple conversations with people about how, and I'm one that totally feels this way, that I think it's really fucking stupid stupid that when you go into college, you have to declare a major. Because I changed my major like 3 or 4 times. And just about every kid does that because you don't really know what you want to do in the beginning, or you think you do. And then you get into those classes and you realize, fuck, this is stupid. I don't want to do this, you know? So
I think in England, don't you get to do like uni for 2 years and then you decide where you want to transition to?
probably that's what it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, especially in our college system here, like, you know, your first 2 years are usually general ed classes anyways, but they still make you declare a fucking major, which I think is stupid. Like, because I had to go through the process of changing it multiple times. It added a year to my college experience. And by the way, the epiphany that I was talking about that I had about realizing that I didn't want to be in what I actually majored in was after college, after I'd already gotten the degree and I was working in the field. I realized, fuck, I don't really want to do this my whole life.
In Germany, you can go to school for like specifically what you're studying for. So my partner, David, his cousin, she decided she wanted to be an administrative assistant. So, you know, whatever floats your boat. But they have schools specifically to be an administrative assistant. And she's only in class 2 days a week. And the other 3 days, she's actually working in an office, which is great because then like halfway through, you're like, well, what did I do?
Yeah.
You can get out of it and do something else. And I just feel like we should have more trade schools that involve the profession where you're actually doing it hands-on, because yeah, like I know you did an internship in college, but internships can have such like a lofty point of view and the experience can be so different than the real world when you're actually out there hustling and grinding.
True. So true. I had an amazing internship experience, and that was in my last semester of college because that was when they required you to do one.
Crystal
and then,
got to meet Morgan Freeman. I'm so jealous.
And then I get out of college with my degree and I actually go work in the field, and you know, for half a year, whatever it was, and I'm doing all this shit and I realized I don't want to fucking do this. Like, everybody here is so unhappy. It's nothing like my internship. My internship was like so much better than this shit, and I wasn't even getting paid for it.
Definitely the way they expressed it in the show, I think it was important because then it could also show other kids out there that feel this pressure and they're trying to figure out what it is they want to do. Like, taking a break is not a problem. I think that all those issues were put onto Rory, like that it was not okay to take a break, was because Lorelai was just terrified that she was going to ruin her life. But I think that she should know her daughter better and know that Rory is going through something, but she's eventually going to come back around to who she is.
Yeah. And let's get real. Yale is fucking really expensive. And if you don't know what you want to do or you're having a crisis, I would pull out too for a semester. Shit's too expensive to just fuck around. Like,
yeah, you should definitely take a break because that's a lot of wasted money. Yeah. But this fight is so interesting because the way that Lorelai and Rory fight is they literally fight for like a day and then they just don't speak to each other for like days on end.
Yeah, it's not a healthy relationship.
Yeah, like they don't deal with it. They're both stubborn, which is funny because I think it was in season 1, like when they're having that fight about the termite issue, Dean like makes a noise and she's like, what does that mean? And he's like, I'm afraid to talk. Words are dangerous. And she's like, no, just say it. And he's like, you and your mom are both stubborn. And I thought that was really great that they had an outsider character point that out to them, because when you as a person, you're not going to notice that or even want to say that about yourself. But that's like why they both fight for so long, because they both think they're right. Like, they're both very proud, independent women, which is totally great. But then they get stuck in these roundabout fights, and Rory actually needed her mom through that guidance. But because Lorelai was so stuck in her opinion of this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, she wasn't there for Rory when Rory actually needed, like, I think in this situation, she needed a friend rather than her mom to guide her through the situation. So because Lorelai struggled with what her identity is in their relationship so much, this was actually the time for her to be a friend and help Rory through this process.
Yeah, now that I'm like thinking about their arguments, they tend to argue more like friends than a mother-daughter relationship, because I don't know about with your mom, but for me, when me and my mom would argue, it was never like we argue and then we'd stop talking. It was like we argue and we fucking argue and argue until it's over with, and then you get over it and you move on. Like, my mother would have never, I used to try that shit too. I used to try to like, okay, well, we're done with this argument, so I'm just gonna go in my room and not talk to you for the rest of the day. Totally fucking impossible if you live with the person and like need them to feed you and things like that. So like, you would get over it. But I feel like the way they fight and then just stop talking is more like what a friendship is than a mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah, like friends can go like days on days without speaking to each other. But me and my mom, we would just like yell at each other. And then my dad would walk in and basically take law and say, yeah, call me by my phone name and be like, this conversation's over. And I would be so mad because I'm pretty sure I would always almost win all the arguments with my mom if he never intervened. But then I'd be mad at her for like the evening, but then I'd wake up the next day and be fine. But me and my mom also fought like 24/7 over everything. Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. But it's, yeah, they don't fight in a healthy manner. It's like Lorelai wants to put down the law, but Rory's like, you're my mom, but like, I'm thinking of you as my friend right now and I don't have to fucking listen to what you're saying. So
yeah, Yeah, which definitely then causes so many like developmental problems in who Rory should be and Lorelai.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess we'll go backwards then. So the fight before that, I think that defines the relationship would be when Rory sleeps with Dean.
I thought that was a really stupid thing, by the way, but that's just me.
Like, I just feel like it's...
I never liked Dean, though. I was never a Dean fan. I was always a Jess fan, so...
I'm torn between Jess and Logan. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, me too. No, me too. But Dean was like never ever my favorite, and I was like, you're an idiot. Why did you sleep with him? So, and I'm like a huge, you do not cheat or wreck homes, basically, and that's exactly what Rory does. And I'm like, Rory, you're so much better than that.
Yeah, and the weird thing is before she did that, I'm trying to think if Lorelai did Lorelai ever sleep with Christopher when he was in a relationship? Because I want to know like if there was an example created where Rory thought that was okay to cheat.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that when I finish watching this. I mean, I know that she slept with Christopher a few times, but I don't remember, when he got that girl and they had the baby.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever cheated cheated.
Yeah, so Lorelai's never shown Rory infidelity, so I'm really curious where this came from. I know that Rory struggles with like relationships, but it was just weird to me
It's
that
a dad issue thing that she has.
Yeah, it must be the dad issue where she basically doesn't understand how to accept love from men, and then she's never seen a relationship. And because I think it was because she was lonely at Yale, wasn't she? Like she didn't have a ton of friends.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So he felt like home to her.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, Lorelai's like first really good long-term relationship that she has in front of Rory is with Luke. And that's when she's already in college, So like it's hard to have relationships and have good ones when you don't have any kind of reference for it, except her grandparents. And even her grandparents like didn't have the best relationship in my opinion. And they do break up for like a time, so.
Oh my God. I think that was my favorite Emily, where he's like, when she was in the basement.
Oh yeah.
He's like, why are you hanging outside the window without your skirt on? The neighbors are going to call the cops on us. Like Emily in distress and like showing
Angry.
Richard how she really feels is like, oh, it's the most like rewarding thing ever about Emily. Besides, when she throws a great cocktail party and she's so proud of herself.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I love Emily when she's not being a dick to Lorelai. Like when she's just on her own being awesome. She's so fucking funny.
Yeah. Like she's such a queen, which is why I think it's great that she eventually, her and Richard get in that fight because he doesn't appreciate her and he tells her that her DAR meetings are silly and all this stuff. And it's like, she takes care of your fucking life, Richard. Like you need to acknowledge how great your wife is, and she doesn't work so that you can do your job and everything can exist perfectly.
That's right. She's the queen, dude. You got to treat her like a queen.
Yeah. So I'm glad that she eventually like gets upset at him and then she goes on dates and he gets all jealous and crashes the car. But anyways, this fight is once again, she basically tells Rory that she's an idiot and she made a terrible mistake, and
which I fully agree with, by the way.
Yes, but I think that because the situation was so delicate and Rory was so confused, I don't think it was appropriate for her to be so mean to her the moment it happened. Like,
yeah, I mean, I can't speak from personal experience. I've never like cheated or had somebody cheat on me, so I can't really say that she was being an idiot or whatever. But I would, if my daughter did that, I would be so upset that I would probably say the same thing. I would probably be like livid and be like, why the fuck are you wrecking homes? Like, that is not cool. Don't ever do that kind of thing. Like that. And Rory's such a smart kid that I think Lorelai was just so taken aback that she's like, what the fuck? Like, I thought you were better than this kind of thing.
100%. I just think that's definitely what pushed her away from wanting to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, because she went to Lane and like talked to Lane about it first, right? Like right after it happened, I feel like.
Yeah, and Lane obviously wasn't the greatest example because Lane's like, oh my God, was it amazing?
Or no, it wasn't right after because Lorelai like caught them right after.
Yeah.
But she talked to Lane about it after that.
And Lane was just like, was it amazing? Like, are you guys going to get together now? Which is not like the encouragement that Rory needed, because then once they did start dating, her and Dean did, it was a really awkward relationship. But basically, because Lorelai shut her out, which like we both agree on was, she had to yell at her that way because it was just so shocking and upsetting. But then she sends her off to Europe with her grandma. So that way she can't pursue this relationship with Dean and doesn't have to deal with her. Like, that's so weird.
Yeah, when you look at when they fight, like Lorelai just doesn't handle it well. Like she would rather just like say her piece and then like make her go away.
Yeah, she's like, I'm right, you're wrong, and you're not going to listen to me, so get the fuck out of my sight.
Which, by the way, like I'm sorry, I'm like a really big psychology person. And if you think about it, that's probably exactly how her relationship with Emily was. Like when Emily would fight with her, Emily's like queen, right? It's like, you're wrong. Go to your room, or I'm going to go to this side of the house and we're just not going to talk about it or deal with it. Like, that's just it. And that's what she would do. She'd shut out Lorelai, and that's why Lorelai ran away, right?
Oh my God. You're probably so right. That's probably exactly what Emily did to her. She'd be like, go to your room. I'm done talking to you. And it's just like Lorelai so hard did not want to be like her parents, but it's inevitable sometimes.
It really is. Well, I mean, you do what you know and what you've experienced, and that's what she's experienced. So even though she tries not to, it comes out, you know? That's just how it happens.
Yeah. And then this also comes back to like a boy issue where Lorelai is afraid that Rory's going to ruin her future because she's concerned about a boy. Like, she doesn't want Rory to repeat her life where she got pregnant and couldn't go to college and have all these dreams.
Which it totally does end up happening. Like, that's what I do love about Gilmore Girls. It's just like history repeating itself, you know? And it's something that I didn't expect, but Amy always talked about after, so you know, like the last season.
Yeah,
the last season sucked balls because they took off Amy and her husband, and it didn't end the way she wanted. Amy always made it very clear from the very beginning that she knew exactly how it was going to end to the last words that were said. And then that last season happened and it sucked ass. And then they came back with the newer season and finally finished it the way it should have been. And I love that because it was like a full circle, you know, like, oh, Rory's pregnant just like her mom was, out of wedlock, you know.
Yeah, like Logan is Christopher, and then Jess is Luke. But who's Dean? Who is Dean in reference to? Is he Max? Because Max was like very emotional.
I don't know. Dean was just, I mean, I'm sure.
Maybe Dean was a mix of Christopher, because like Christopher is part of Lorelai's past, but he's also the rich boy.
I almost feel like Dean is like the catalyst. Like, he's the good guy that you think Rory's gonna end up with, right? You think she's got her shit together and she's never gonna repeat the shit that her mom did. And so she has Dean, and it's great when they're in high school, but then when she like sleeps with him later on, it's like the catalyst that sets her off with like crappy ending to relationships kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was so weird seeing Jared Padalecki come back in like the return season, because I watch him on Supernatural, and it's
Like, where's the crossover?
yeah, I was like, Sam is now playing Dean, and he says he lives in Chicago. I was like, but
Does he live in Chicago on that show?
No, he lives in
okay.
like they said in the comeback show of Gilmore Girls. Dean's like, yeah, I live in Chicago with my wife and stuff.
No, I know. I just meant in the other show. Where does he live?
No, they're from Kansas, but they travel because they kill monsters all over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen an episode, but she watches it.
Yeah, but so it was funny, like seeing he'd been away from that show for so long, and then seeing him as another character. Like he did a good job of going back into Dean's body and essence, and it was just weird. I just had to add that tidbit. It was fun, but this fight was really upsetting between Lorelai and Rory. But I really liked how they reconciled it.
I don't remember. How do they reconcile it?
Rory is sitting at the same restaurant that the same corner.
Oh, in Europe. They're in Europe, right? Or
yeah.
Rory's in Europe and she calls her mom, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's on the same corner that her and Lorelai also visited. And she just starts reminding her about her trip.
But Rory still comes back and dates Dean, right? Even though he's not divorced yet or whatever.
Well, they're separated because Lindsay finds the letter.
Yeah.
But I like that she kind of ended the fight by... Again, neither of them say like, I'm sorry, but they both sort of are just kind of like, can we end this because we're exhausted from the fight? But it was sweet for her to be like, remember we did this in Italy and blah, blah, blah. And then Lorelai's, oh, we're talking? Okay, we can be friends again. Like, it is weird that they don't actually ever resolve their fights. They never talk about it.
No, they really don't. Yeah, now that you say that,
they just kind of like wave a white flag.
Yeah, like, okay, let's start talking again because you're my best friend and I don't want to be away from you anymore.
Yeah, basically. So I don't think that's really healthy.
No, it's not.
But then it's funny because their first fight also revolves around Dean.
Yeah, I know. All of their major fights revolve around two things. Either Rory with a boy or something regarding Lorelai's parents. Like in the first couple of the first season, there's a few where it's like Rory's trying to get to know her grandparents, or they're hanging out and Emily's like trying to get them closer or whatever. And Lorelai doesn't like it. Lorelai's like, no, I don't want you hanging out with them. I don't want you liking my life that I ran away from.
She's so jealous that that Rory had a good time golfing with her grandpa.
Yeah. No, it's so funny because those are like all of their fights are about boys or grandparents.
Yeah. The first fight was really upsetting. Rory and Dean go to prom and then they decide to go to Miss Patty's, but they accidentally fall asleep there. They don't have sex, but Lorelai and, Emily wakes up first, realizes Rory's not in the house. Lorelai wouldn't have panicked, but Emily did because she's Emily. And then of course she finds out that she's at Miss Patty's, but then Emily like has a complete heart attack and says like, she's turning just like you. You're a terrible mother, blah, blah, blah. And all these insecurities are put on her. And then when Rory comes home, Lorelai literally like screams at her, even though Rory's like crying and telling her how sorry she is. And she's like, why don't you believe me that I didn't do anything? And Lorelai's like, I don't care. You embarrassed me in front of my mom. And it's like, oh, you're pride woman.
Yeah, I've actually liked that fight because Rory like clearly calls out her mom like, you're just upset because I fucked up and I did it in front of grandma.
Oh, such a good line. Like it's so much truth.
Yeah. That's one that did they resolve that one?
Yeah, that one they actually did, which is like surprising they didn't continue to keep that streak because Lorelai apologizes. I think because that one she knows is like 100% her fault.
Yeah, and that one, Rory's still a kid. She's not 18. She's not in college yet. She didn't actually do anything wrong. And I think Lorelai realizes, like I just overreacted, which I don't blame her. Like if I was a mom and my kid didn't show up after a night at prom, like of course you would think that they fucking had sex, right? Like why are they somewhere else sleeping? Of course they had sex. I mean, I think she didn't execute it well in the way that she freaked out. But at the same time, Emily was there like pushing her over the edge to make her react that way.
Oh yeah, Emily was like a huge pusher. She's like, you need to be a better mom. You need to be super strict and set a better example. And Lorelai's like, no, I left that life, which is what you did to me. And I don't want to do that to her, even though she turns around and then does it in that fight. But I am glad that she apologizes and resolves it. And it's funny because Dean's like, should I not come around for a while? And Rory's like, yeah, don't.
Yeah.
it's you need to wait like a week.
Up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good fight.
Yeah, so I say that's probably like their best one that they actually like were adults about. And it's surprisingly when Rory's younger and like you said, she's a kid, so she didn't know better.
Yeah, all those fights in the first season or so, I feel like they deal with better. Although I will say that they fight when Lorelai does her like quote unquote breakup with Max, where she basically just runs away and they go on a road trip. They're like stuck in that Airbnb one night and they haven't eaten. And Rory like really eggs her mom on like, we should really talk. What do you want to talk about? Well, let's talk about Max. What happened, And Lorelai just like cannot deal with it and she doesn't want to talk about it. And it like kind of becomes a little bit of a fight. But then they do resolve it because she's, they're like going to bed and she's like, I really wish I loved him kind of a thing. But they never really talk about anything else about it. Like that was it. Like
yeah, and I wish that Lorelai honestly needed the counseling more than Emily because Lorelai does not deal with anything and she always acts like she has her shit together.
Mm-hmm. She's not good at dealing with stuff in relationships at all.
And I think Rory eventually gets better at it. I know that Lorelai gets mad at her for when she forgives Logan for, that's such a great area. Like, did Logan cheat on her? Like, they didn't technically break up, but they also didn't speak for like 2 months.
I don't remember. When was this?
So remember...
Is this the last season or is this before the last season?
I think this is season 6. So Logan and Rory, they get back together and she goes with Logan to his sister's wedding and all the bridesmaids are talking about how they all hooked up with Logan in front of her. Yeah. So it's like, I think if I was her, I would...
He did cheat though, right? I mean, like...
Yeah, they weren't broken up. So I think if I was her in that situation, I would 100% feel cheated on. And I know that like Lorelai never forgave Rory for getting back with Logan, but she kept her mouth shut after, I think it was after the Dean fight because she didn't like how they were just arguing about boys and relationships and she stopped putting her 2 cents in their relationships.
Yeah. To be fair though, with the whole Logan situation, what do you expect? You're dating, like, in my opinion, not a bad guy, but like a guy that, he's
like a spoiled rich brat.
And a player, and it was hard enough to get him in a relationship. So when you break up, you kind of have to, or have a fight, you kind of have to expect something like that. It's not like shocking. Like, did you really think he was going to sit there and pine for you? We didn't even really want to be in a relationship with you in the first place.
Yeah, and like I think it's good that Lorelai kept her 2 cents out, but it also caused like a lot of, you could just see her always triggered anytime like Logan got brought up. And there were like,
because Logan's from the life that she doesn't want to be a part of. And she hates that. I think Rory's like fits in with that life.
Yeah, more. I think a lot of it comes from jealousy.
Yeah, I mean, because Rory can fit in anywhere and Lorelai just could not fit in with that lifestyle.
I definitely feel like with the Logan cheating situation, it's when you're in a relationship like that and, like Logan, he's like the rich popular boy that likes you. You're like, well, he's making an effort now. it's different. So I can see why she forgave him and stuff. But he was a good boyfriend from there on.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he definitely turned out better than I expected. And I did like him. I was really like torn between him and Jess as far as like good relationships go for her. I'm not gonna lie. One of my favorite scenes ever in a show is when he proposes to her at her graduation and she says no. I'm like, that is so fucking great, because that is exactly how I felt when I was in college. Like, don't give up what you want to do or be for a boy. And that's exactly what I was asking her to do. And she was like, nope, I got other things I'm doing.
Yeah, and I felt like it really struck true to who Rory was, which is why like in the later seasons, like when they do the comeback show, it kind of sucks that her and Logan are sleeping together and he's technically engaged to somebody else, like, which is
homewrecker again.
Yeah, which is really weird, but I guess that was like Amy trying to prove that like Rory's still an independent girl and she, you know, like she wants him, but she also wants her job, so therefore their relationship will never work because he needs like a stay-at-home perfect wife.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really like Rory as much in the last season because she is a homewrecker, and then she has that like boy on the side that like tugging along, the boyfriend that she doesn't even like remember she has or whatever. Like, I can understand that's kind of funny, but at the same time I'm like, that doesn't sound like her. Like, she, at least in the older season, she cared about people. She wasn't like a bitch, you know?
Yeah, it was weird like how Amy wrote her in this new season. And even Alexis Bledel talked about in interviews how she didn't really like the ending of the show, and I don't think she just liked Rory's character in these episodes either, so that might have been projected on screen too.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of it.
The only thing I liked in the comeback season was the life and death brigade scene.
Oh, really?
Where they came in the middle of the night and they had that like whole musical sequence. Like, that just melted my heart. Like, that's probably like my favorite group of like a show, you know, like all those like fan chips you have and everything. Those boys together it was hilarious. Like, if I was going to an Ivy League school, I would want to be friends with those guys. Like,
totally.
I would not ever sleep with them because they'd break my heart and they'd probably give me like some type of disease.
Yeah.
But like, so fun to be friends with.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I liked them in the new season. I did really like just the way Emily and Lorelai like kind of dealt with their relationship, and then the dad dying kind of like
that was so sad when the actor died because he wasn't going to be there for the comeback show.
And I did like Lorelai. I mean, don't quote me on this, but what I can remember, I liked Lorelai and Luke going to the like IVF or whatever it was clinic, and it was Paris running.
Dude, oh my God, we have to have like a special like a shout out for like the Paris and Rory friendship, because Paris is so much and Rory like stuck by her side even when Paris was mean to her. Like, she just realized that like Paris didn't have friends, her home life sucked. Like, that's why it is upsetting to show Rory not being a caring person in the comeback show, because she was such a caring person. Like, she was friends with Paris, who was super obnoxious, had so many issues, and like she put up with that girl.
Yeah, I always really love the girl that plays Paris. I know that she like originally tried out for Rory and they're like, you don't really fit the thing, but we have this other character for you, and she just fucking nailed Paris. She was so great at it.
She talked about in interviews that she didn't like how high-strung Paris was, but that was something I kind of liked about Paris. I feel like she was really unique, but I get that women can typically be portrayed as like high-strung and stressful when that's not always the case.
It's not always the case, but I think she was supposed to be like a great example of people in a rich family that are kind of like, you know, they are driven, but they're also being pushed, so it makes them more high-strung, right? You know, like she has to go. Remember when she freaks out because she doesn't get into Harvard?
Oh my God, life crisis.
You know? And I'm like, yeah, I could see that. Like, I'm sure that I would feel similar to that if I was in her kind of a situation. Well, I mean, in that kind of a family.
She went to the extreme to call herself a slut that she didn't get in because she had sex.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, like, once again, how like Rory and Lorelai's fights always revolve around boys. Yes, like Lorelai's the mom and it's her job to guide Rory in relationships, but she really was kind of always trying to like how she like behaved and acted. Like when she was with Dean, which this was really messed up that Rory was doing this, she clearly liked Jess. And instead of breaking up with Dean because she like felt bad but still did care for him, she was like oogling over Jess the whole time. And like that was like a minor continuous like debate between them, like that Lorelai kept calling her out for it.
Yeah, she was like emotionally cheating on Dean, kind of with Jess. Like they don't ever actually physically cheat, but she might as well have been. You know, like she wasn't into Dean anymore, and it was very obvious to everybody else except her.
Well, he did become like really like obsessed and clingy, and even Lorelai was like, "This is weird."
Yeah, I know. I never liked Dean. I was always a Jess person, so I was like, "Yeah, get it, Rory." But at the same time, I'm like, you should have fucking just broken up with Dean, and you know,
because like Dean had
Don't be that
issues,
chick.
but he didn't deserve what Rory did to him.
no, he was a very good first boyfriend. It was like he was very much like my first boyfriend, almost too clingy, and it pushed me away. Like it was just like that, and like just too good of a good guy, you know. And some girls like Rory don't want that. So
I will say though that he was like the only boy though that like ever came over and did like Friday nights with Rory and Lorelai.
Yeah.
I mean, he was also the only boyfriend that Lorelai actually liked.
yeah, he was the good guy. He was the good one, and all the other ones just are. I mean, they're not bad, but they were more rebellious and
Yeah, and so I think that always
Hotter,
that always
sexier.
scared. Yeah, I think that always scared Lorelai. She's like, oh God, I don't want her to like get pregnant, even though that's what happens. But at least she's an adult by the time that happens.
yeah. I was thinking about their relationship, Rory and Lorelai's relationship. Lorelai had her at 16, right?
Yeah,
I never really thought about it when I was originally watching these shows, but in the first season when Rory like meets the Chilton girls, Louise and I can't remember that
I was
blonde chick's
just
name.
watching that yesterday too.
Paris, Louise, and something.
Morgan?
And,
I don't know.
No. And they were at her house and they like kind of bonded with Lorelai, and they asked how old Lorelai was, and she's like, I'm 32, right? Because Rory's now 16.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, God, like it makes total sense because their relationship is almost like a younger sister, older sister, right?
Yeah, like me and my sister are 8 years apart, which isn't 16 years, but that's still pretty drastic where like my sister always felt like my mom. I mean, she
Yeah, just, like,
babysat me a
taking care
lot.
of you.
Yeah, but she was also like the age gap. She always felt like older than me. She was taller than me. She was cooler than me. It had that level.
Yeah, and that's kind of how, I mean, yeah, there's a bigger age difference. And yes, Rory and Lorelai are mother-daughter, but I definitely feel like sometimes they act more like sisters.
Yeah. And I also thought it was interesting how involved Rory is with like a lot of the decision making that happens in their house, like when it comes to money and bills.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's just the two of them. So that's something they've always had to like worry about and take care of together. And it's funny because like when it's not an issue, like Lorelai has no problem with like Rory knowing what's going on. But when it is an issue and she's like embarrassed about it, she's like, Mom has this handled. Like, I don't need you. And it's like, but you made this decision basically almost making her like a roommate to you to be heavily involved in the decision making. And then you cut her out when you
When
have
times
like
get rough.
yeah, and like your pride kicks in.
Yeah, no, that's silly.
Yeah, but
That's the mother side of her, though.
yeah, but I still at the end of the day just like am really in love with their like mother-daughter friendship that they have with each other, and I'm totally envious of it. But I do think that, like you said, that the fact that they are 15 years apart plays a huge role, because my mom had my sister when she was I think 20, and so my mom and my sister are really close. I mean, obviously everyone has like their issues when you're mother-daughter no matter what, but they're way more closer than I am with me and my mom. Like me and my mom fight a lot, and my mom and my sister don't fight that much. And they see each other almost every day. I don't know if I can handle that.
No, I don't think I could either.
Yeah.
I love my mom and we have a good relationship, but I was always very envious of this one.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, obviously it wasn't, you know, we had our fights and stuff. I was a teenage girl and she was my mom. But like now we're closer. We're definitely nothing close to them. Like they're just a whole different breed. But
Yeah, like me and my mom get along well much more now. I think I've grown up and kind of taken a few things into consideration to how to make it more peaceful and not bicker about everything. But yeah, there's just definitely something special about Rory and Lorelai, and like her mom was always encouraging, and her mom also made situations like really fun. Like right now I'm reading this book called The Happiness Project, and for one of the months she talks about like how she wants to become a better parent, and some of those things is like listening and acknowledging your kids' feelings more and making things silly in the moment. And I feel like Lorelai was really good at that with Rory, that like when anything felt super stressful or odd, like she always had like a witty comeback, or she had like a fun game to make, or like when they had to run a bunch of chores, they would make like a little adventure out of it.
Yeah.
And they'd like build a roadmap and all these cool things they had to do.
yeah.
And I think that that's kind of like creating family traditions. Like they had their Friday night movies with all their crazy food they ate. And I feel like that just makes it more fun, because like obviously they didn't have a ton of money. So, you know, they couldn't really do any vacations until they went to Europe when she was 18, but they made traditions out of of what they had. And Lorelai was really good about making everything really special they did in their life, no matter what.
Yeah, she was definitely a good mom. And it's funny too, because I've talked a lot in this episode about life repeating itself, and like you have these daddy issues and they get transferred to your kid. But one thing that was broken and it was really great is the mother-daughter relationship, right? Because Lorelai and her mom had this terrible mother-daughter relationship, but she made sure not to have that with Rory. And instead they had this like amazing bond that her and Emily will never have. It's really great to see them break that wheel.
But in the comeback show, when Rory decides to write a book about her and her mom, I don't get why Lorelai's so offended. She's like, I don't want people knowing my business. And it's like, I thought that she would be like excited and proud that Rory was writing their life story.
You would think. I don't know. That whole new season was just kind of weird in general. And
Yeah.
I feel like the characters were a little different.
It had been quite some time. And so I think it was like, I feel like Amy was trying really hard to like re-correct the show and like steer it in the way she wanted it to go. But then because all these other things happened, she was trying to like fix it and ignore them. Because like, I think I read somewhere that she pretty much ignored everything that happened in season 7 and just like made.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So then it makes those 4 episodes even more weird.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
I could see that.
I get that you don't want to acknowledge it, Amy, but as fans, like we all watched that a million times. We know what happened. So trying to erase it doesn't really fix this.
No, it doesn't. I'm glad that they did their like reboot season so that she could have her final say and that everything could kind of close out. But at the same time, it wasn't as cohesive as I would have liked. And
yeah, I feel like that's kind of where it became like artists having too much control, but then also the fans like getting their way when really we shouldn't have.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's become now. Like,
yeah, like I'm so thankful that we got more, but I don't think I want more. Like obviously there's fans that keep talking about it, and Amy is, very said like open-endedly, like if I think there's more to the story, I'll do it, but as of right now there's not. And
yeah,
even Lauren Graham is like, I'll do it any day of the week, which I get. That's pretty much one of the best characters I've seen her play besides her character on Parenthood. But yeah, I was obviously there on the couch at midnight waiting for it to appear on Netflix. So was all for it. But yeah, it didn't quite, I haven't rewatched it since it came out.
I watched it once afterwards because I watched through it so fast the first time that I like didn't remember, and I just didn't feel like happy about it the first time around. So I was like, I think I need to watch it again and see if I like it better the second time, which I didn't like it better, but I watched it again and like, understood it more. So
yeah, like you noticed more and everything.
But that is like it's kind of weird because it's all like new territory now that we have like Netflix and Amazon and all those new platforms. Like fans have more of a say in whether they bring back a show. So like they brought back, Arrested Development, they brought back Gilmore Girls, or if they're unhappy with something, they'll like shows will change something, which is so odd to me. Game of Thrones was one where they caught the cups. She doesn't watch it, but they caught like coffee cups in like shots because they hastily went through the last season and made it suck ass.
Ellen was able to get a copy of it and she showed it on her show, so I saw it.
Yeah, no, I've seen the pictures, but and I watched it live, which means I saw it. I just didn't notice it. But they can go back and change it, and it's just odd because part of me, by the way, you heard how bad the last episode was of Game of Thrones?
I've heard a lot of things about the last season, and basically majority of fans.
No, but the very last episode.
Oh, no.
So I don't know one single person that was happy with the last episode, including myself.
There's spoilers if you're listening to this, so don't be offended.
There's not. It's just that we weren't happy with it. That's it.
Okay.
I don't know anybody that was happy with the way it ended. And part of me is like, I really wish that they'd go back and change it. Like, I will gladly sign any petition. Like, please rewrite it. But then at the same time, I'm over here going, well, that's how they wanted to end it. And they did end it that way. So just like suck it up and be okay with it, whatever, but we do have that kind of power nowadays, which is kind of weird. And then they bring back shows and they either suck or they're really great. And this was kind of one where it was kind of in between. It wasn't great and it wasn't terrible. I'm glad Amy got her piece.
Yeah. So I hope all the Gilmore Girl fans are going to hate me, but I don't think we deserve another 4 episodes.
Really wanted it too. When this first came out, I was like, they better keep going with this. This better not be the last thing.
But honestly, like, it's sometimes refreshing when a show ends on like an open-ended line like that, because I know there's more for the characters. I don't necessarily need to be involved or see it, but I know that they're still going on and that there isn't like this hard stamp. Like for How I Met Your Mother, in my opinion, that was like the worst ending to the show. Basically in the show, we finally meet the mom, but then they do like, I don't know, like 10 years or 5 years later thing. And then they kill her. She gets like some terrible disease and then he ends up with Robin. And I'm like, might as well just made him end up with Robin. But then Robin is with this other character, Barney, and they went through like 3 seasons of like drama just to get them together and then destroyed the relationship.
I hope you've all seen this show.
So spoilers, yeah. But How I Met Your Mother's been on forever.
Yeah.
So, but it's just kind of like,
well, I'm glad there's another show, by the way, where the last season or the last episode sucked because I was really heartbroken about Game of Thrones, but I'm glad there's other shows.
oh no, How I Met Your Mother completely like
Game of Thrones
broke
was like
my
the
heart.
best fucking TV show until that last season, or more like the last couple episodes. But
Yeah, it's really frustrating when they try to put like a full cap on the story, and I think it's better to just sort of end it on like this open-ended thing.
Yeah, questionable. I love when movies are like that. Like, and I'm sorry, we're totally getting off topic here, but at the end of Inception, right?
Oh yeah,
with the spinning top, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's gonna fall." No, it's not. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's so great that they just left it there because that's all people talk about now.
Yeah, like there's so much debate around it, but I feel like it makes the conversation more breathable because you get to sit there and wonder, and I think that's the best.
And do you really want to like? I love Gilmore Girls. It is one of my all-time favorite shows. I've watched it hundreds of times. But do I really want to see Rory struggle being a mom and Lorelai and Luke maybe finally get their shit together? Like, no, I kind of like it the way it ended, where it's up in the air. History's going to repeat itself, and that's just where it ends. So, you know.
And I also don't want like more relationships to get destroyed because when it's a drama, you have to cause bumps in people's relationships. So I don't want any more nonsense between Lorelai and Luke. They're finally together.
I want to make my own happy ending about it and let it be, right?
So that's our 2 cents. As hardcore Gilmore Girls fans, we will riot if there is a return season.
Yeah.
All right. We hope you enjoyed. And next week, there's going to be more Gilmore Girls.
2 more episodes of Gilmore Girls, right?
Yeah. Yes, 2 more.
Yeah.
With lots more coffee,
So
as
stay
always.
tuned.
Did we just become best friends? Yup. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Thanks for listening to Best Friends Playbook Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
You can also email us episode suggestions at bestfriendsplaybook@gmail.com. And if you could please leave us a review on iTunes, it helps us greatly to grow our podcast.